Hey guys, what's up? This is Benji Bruce here, and I'm here with a guy named Ron Eccles. And Ron is an amazing guy, and I'm actually going to let him tell you about himself. This guy, I met him in Vegas for the first time. It was in June, I believe, June, July, and he just completely blew me away with just the type of person he is. The guy has literally reinvented himself several times. Uh, Millionaire at this point, and his mindset is like on a whole new level right now. So I want to introduce you guys to Ron Eccles, and Ron is actually going to talk about just the mindset in general. And Ron, real quick, just tell us about yourself, just for
Great,
everyone who
Benji.
doesn't know.
Benji, first of all, thanks so much for having me on. I get so excited just connecting with other people who are so like-minded. You see, just the very subject of talking about mindset separates you and everyone listening to this from the rest of the world. Because, I mean, one of the things the other day I had one of these epiphanies, and I'm always looking to try to figure out a way to connect better with the world and expressing really what I am. And being a doctor by background, I actually came up with a whole new way to niche myself. I'm going to be referring to myself as the doctor of mental wealth.
Cool.
Because that's really what life is about. Everything in your life changes when everything up here changes. And let me give you a little bit of my background. I was one of those kids I came out of New Jersey. I was born and raised there, and I was an underperformer or underachiever as you can ever get. I went through grade school and high school academically, never impressing anyone, not even myself. And it was probably my freshman year of college where I was on academic probation at the very end. And between that freshman and sophomore year, something happened in my life that literally changed the way I thought, and that's really where it occurred. I got a job working in roofing, hot tar roofing, which is one of the most grueling and hard jobs I'd ever had up to that point in my life. The boss I had would pick on me from the time I got there to the time I left every single day because I was the youngest guy on the crew, I was non-union, and I was expendable. And this guy was very insecure with who he was, and he just felt like he had to pick on someone all day long, and I was it. After about 6 weeks of this, I had reached a point where I was really ready to really take him out. I was pretty upset with this guy, and fortunately, I had a very close friend who was a mentor to me, working with me, who kind of talked me off the ledge and talked me not into going after him. And it was that day I made the decision that I was never going to work for somebody like that as long as I lived. I was going to have to work hard in school and change who I was, and that really began changing this up here. I had to change, first of all, my belief that I could do it. Now, one of the things I recognized at this age, and I'm going on 54 soon, is that I was learning disabled. Reading was very difficult for me, and I had a difficult time focusing in on letters and on the page to really accomplish reading and getting comprehension to be up to par where everyone else was. So what I had to do is I had to make up for it. I had to do something different than other people would do. It means I had to work twice as hard to understand the same information that you and everyone else was reading. I had to go that extra mile to really get it down. And little by little, I became an A student. I went on then to impress the people at Logan Chiropractic College, where I eventually was accepted, and went on to have an excellent career in Florida, where I practiced. I obtained 3 different diplomate statuses, one in orthopedics, one in neurology, and a board eligibility in sports injury. Now, I say all that not to impress anyone, just to let you know that I was one of those guys that never stopped pushing myself because I knew that I had to invest back into me every single day because I was the most important investment I would ever go into. Mm-hmm. And the dividends that it would reap would be not just for my life, but for my family as well. So after practicing about 10 years, I did extraordinarily well. I lived in Sarasota, Florida. I had an injury that kind of changed my life. I shattered my wrist, and you can imagine, one-arm chiropractor is kind of like being a one-arm paper hanger. It doesn't work too well. And I retired, and I began teaching for about 4 years. But teaching was incredibly enjoyable, but it wasn't fulfilling enough. I wasn't teaching enough, and I wasn't really working hard enough. So I was offered an opportunity to buy a restaurant from a guy who was a friend of mine. I used to sit there and say, well, how could he go from being a doctor, a postgraduate instructor, to essentially a dishwasher? But I bought a restaurant up in Pennsylvania. I moved my entire family up there. And again, my life changed. My former wife at that point decided she didn't want to be married anymore. We had 5 children. I wound up raising my 5 children in Pennsylvania, running up to 3 restaurants. and becoming an entrepreneur in a whole new area. What was amazing, though, that the confidence I lacked in the beginning when it came to the specific skills of being a restaurateur were compensated for by the confidence I had as being a successful businessman in general. In other words, I knew whatever it took me to become successful in practice as a chiropractor, I applied the same work ethic, same mindset to actually achieve and become at the top of my game in a restaurant business. Well, after about 10 years of restaurant business, I had had enough. It's a lot of work, a lot of hours, and it was time for me to move on. I sold my restaurants and I began buying real estate and studying the whole area of real estate investing. And for now 10 years, my wife and I have both been real estate investors. And about 5 years ago, as a result of my relationships that I built with, and I want to emphasize that word relationships because your success in life is going to depend upon your ability to have successful relationships with other people. I was invited to speak at Bob and Ed Diamond's event in Las Vegas, which was a national real estate event. And it was at that point where my career was launched to do success coaching. And from that point on, for the last 5 years, I've been meeting people like you, Benji, people all around the country who are building careers in different ways. And mine is helping people transition from where they're at right now to a better place where they want to go and do more. Now, I break it down in 4 areas. I believe everybody's looking to be successful in their physical body and health, in their relationships, in their finances, and in their spiritual world. And I help connect people with the right action plan, the right tool sets and the skills to actually take them there. And every single bit of training that I do occurs at the mental level. When you begin to change how the mind works, it's magic what happens to everything else. Dr. Daniel Amen, a great physician, a psychologist who works with people's brains, wrote a book called Change Your Brain, Change Your Body. It's so important that anything in your life you want to change, it actually begins at the brain level. So that's where I'm at right now. I enjoy every single day. By the way, I moved back from Pennsylvania to Florida about 2 months ago, and I am living in a beautiful sunny place right now. About 82 degrees this afternoon. It was about 62 last night. So I'm just back where I'm home.
Oh, wow, very nice. Yeah, it kind of broke up for a second, but yeah, everything seems good. I mean, you seem to be doing great. And earlier you talked about more like the people you network with, the people you associate with. So, I mean, the question I have is, what kinds of people do you associate with? Like, obviously, the people you associate with influence your success. So, what kind of people do you like to associate with?
Absolutely. Benji, outstanding question. And if everybody who's listening right now, I don't know how old you are, I don't know where you're at in life, but I can tell you this. It is extraordinarily important that you really assess who you hang out with and who you spend time with. Now, this is not about dissing the people you are close to and friends that need your help and need your friendship. I'm all about that. But spending that, we call that intimate, that real strong inner circle that you're going to develop in your life, having an intimate time with people, had better be spent with people who are going to help you up your game. They're going to help you play at a higher level. They're going to help hold you accountable to being more of you than you've ever thought possible. You must surround yourself with people that are better. You and I were both at the same event where we met. And I remember one of the guys sitting here talking about, he flat out said to us, some of you are going to have to go back and fire some of your friends.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget that as long as I live, because now I don't have any friends I need to fire, but I certainly understand the concept. Mm-hmm. Because every single day you live is one day of your life you'll never get back. See, my personal philosophy is this. From the time I was born to the time I die, God has given me a finite number of days to live, and it's my choice to maximize, enjoy them, and be blessed by them. And I can't do that when I surround myself with a bunch of knuckleheads. Yeah. So it's really important to find people who are playing up. I want to find people now in my life, I want to find people that are living at the same level spiritually as I am, that are practicing what they believe in. Now let me get really clear about that, because a lot of people don't like to talk about politics and religion. Yeah. And I love talking about both because I respect everybody else's opinion. But here's one of the biggest problems many people have. They live under massive stress because they believe in something, but they're living a completely different way. And when that disconnect occurs, you're stressed out internally. Most people don't even know what's going on, but actually there's a huge problem, a war being waged inside them. So just learning how to connect and get back to where you're walking what you talk is really important to me. So I want to hang out with people who are walking what they talk. Second thing is I want to hang out with people who are looking to up their game constantly. They're looking to invest in themselves, better themselves. They're looking to take themselves to the next level. And those are the kind of people that help inspire me and challenge me to be more of what I can be.
Okay.
The other thing for me, too, is like my wife and I spend 6 days a week at the gym because the gym is a really important place for us. And at the gym, I'm watching other people who are more fit than I am, and I'm picking up different exercise or different techniques that I can mimic or get from them. I love playing basketball. It's my passion. I think you and I talked about that. I try to play 6 days a week, although I'm back here in Florida and I haven't found a game yet, so I'm jonesing right now. And then when it comes to relationships, I want to be around people who are working at building deep relationships. We live in a society today where it's very easy for people to have very shallow relationships with other people. Mm-hmm. We're on text messaging all the time. We are doing things that actually bring us away from being face-to-face, talking with one another, really serving one another in a greater way. So building really strong, deep relationships is extraordinarily healthy for you. And I want to seek people out in my life that are interested in building deep relationships like I am.
Okay, all right. Yeah, that's perfect. And actually, earlier you kind of mentioned, like when you're at the gym, you look at other people and see what they're doing. I was going to ask you this later, but as far as just a mentor, I mean, how important do you think having a mentor is to getting to that next level in your business?
On the 0 to 10 scale, they have to remember, I'm a doctor by background, so I love 0 to 10 scales. It's probably a 10.5 or 11. You see, it's real simple, Benji. There's nothing new under the sun. But there are people who have figured out some things ahead of me, who have walked through some landmines, walked through some storms that I could avoid. If I just seek them out and I pay many times, I invest my money, my time, my energy to learn from them so I can avoid the big mistakes. I can't tell you how often I'm reading, listening to audiobooks, attending seminars, attending events, networking with other people, and I learned something from somebody and I said, wow, if I hadn't learned it from them, if I wasn't there, I would have walked through that problem, I would have walked through that difficulty, and I would have suffered the pain because I didn't invest in their wisdom to actually gain that. So I can't tell you how important it is. I mean, the reason why we have families is because children are born with a mother and father typically to raise them, or a parent to raise them, that is really a mentor throughout their lives, or throughout an important part of their lives. And that process is built into our DNA. If we really want to learn something, we really want to excel, we want to shorten the learning curve, we've got to have mentors.
Okay, all right. And earlier you actually, well, just now you said you tend to invest in yourself a lot, just audiobooks, everything. A lot of people, I've talked with plenty of people, and they say, yeah, I invest in myself and stuff like that. Then you tell them, okay, well, to really invest in yourself, maybe spend $500 on this. And they say, well, actually, I was kind of hoping to get it for free or things like that. And how can you kind of determine whether someone is serious about investing in themselves or whether they just say it? Because like you said earlier, it's like that inner conflict that people have. Some people obviously everyone wants to be successful. I don't know anyone who doesn't want to be. But then there are those who actually put their money where their mouth is. So I guess the question is, how can you tell between the person who says, I want your help, versus someone who actually wants your help?
That's not an easy question, but let me answer it like this. I would say that the majority of people live gaining the same results each and every day because they do nothing different. They do the same things over and over again. And there's a real difference between saying I want something and being willing to pay the price necessary to get it. Brian Tracy, who I think pretty much most of the people listening to this might have heard of before, gave some great advice one time. He talked about a guy named H.L. Hunt, who was a multimillionaire. And before he died, he was asked, what is the secret of your success in life? And he said it was only two things. Number one, figure out what you want. Be very clear about it and write it down. Number two, be willing to pay the price necessary to get it. And then here's what Brian Tracy added that I think is really the catalyst that makes it all happen. Success in life must be paid for in advance and in full. And I think that's really what separates the successful people from the people who just talk about it. Because when you're willing to pay the price, you know it's got to be paid in advance, and it's got to be up front. It's going to hurt. Yeah. Listen, I was just reading a book written by Dustin Matthews and Dan Kennedy, and I'm sitting there thinking of, I should have written this book. It's a history of my life. And Dan Kennedy said something, and if you know anything about Dan Kennedy, he's probably mentored, and been affiliated with more self-made millionaires and billionaires than anybody else in the history of the world. And Dan said that every single successful person he's ever met has always been somebody who's on that cutting edge of investing into programs, investing into mentorship, investing into themselves on a regular basis. Yes, it hurts. Spend $1,000 on a program, $2,000, $5,000, $40,000, $100,000. Yes, it hurts. But anything worthwhile in life is going to be achieved by sacrificing, by investing, by paying the price up front and in full. Listen, you can go to the gym, you can walk out and you can see somebody who's in phenomenal physical fitness. And I can tell you, they didn't get it by sitting at home on a couch watching television, saying, yep, I want to get in shape. They went out, they invested the time in the gym, they paid for the gym membership, they paid for the food that they were going to eat, and they paid the price of the gym year after year to get their body in the shape that it is.
Yeah, okay. Now, there's like a fine line between investing in a course, and then some people, they'll invest in a course or something, but they won't take the action to actually do it. Maybe it works. Maybe they'll make $1 million in 12 hours. The course tells them exactly how, but for some reason they won't do it.
Yeah.
So this is like a huge problem with anyone, really. And how do you have you figured out a way to actually get someone to take more action? Because I personally had this problem where I tell someone, here's the 3 things you need to do to get shows. I literally tell them what to do. And then a week later, they haven't done any of it. And also, that's my whole theory, is that the reason you have people pay is because it'll force them to do it now, because now that they invested. So I don't know where I was going with that, but
no, I'm right with you. I know exactly where you're going, and it's a phenomenal observation. 5 years ago, when I was on a national stage, and I was speaking about a niche in real estate, Bob and Ed pulled me off the stage when I was finished, and they said, "You are going to present and sell a training program, a coaching program this weekend." I said, "Bob and Ed, I really haven't quite zoned in or zeroed in on what I want to do." And they said, by Sunday, we will have you zeroed in. We will figure it out. We'll work tonight. We'll work tomorrow. And we're going to have you sell a coaching program because these people need you. And what I designed from that point forward, what I do today, is meet that very need. So many people, Benji, like you, and like all these experts in different spaces, they have people sign up and buy their products, join their coaching programs, and take no action. And it frustrates people like yourself who want to help people, want to see them get the results, but you don't know how to get them to do that. And that's what my coaching program was launched for. I actually set out a program to rebuild people from the ground up with success principles that can take them anywhere they want to go. You can lead a horse to water. You cannot make them drink. It has to come from an internal thirst. And people need to learn how to nurture that thirst so they wake up hungry every day, ready to take action and do what they need to do. It's not an immediate process. People have to actually reprogram. My entire coaching program is based on this premise, that just like a computer coming out of the box, sorry about that, Benji.
No, that's cool. That's cool.
I knew I forgot to do something.
No problem.
Just like a computer, when it comes out of the box, has an operating system that's really clean and really neat. It's without flaw usually. But then as soon as we plug into the world or the internet and we begin downloading data, different information, eventually corrupt data works its way in there. And this corrupt data causes a program to become inefficient and sometimes crash. And that's what you're talking about right now. You're describing a corrupt program inside of the average person. They know it's correct, but they fail to take action, and action, I should say, the correct action is what's really going to change their lives. You give them advice on how to get shows booked, but if they don't follow that advice, they're never going to get anything done. So they got all the knowledge in the world, but until you step forward and take action, nothing's going to happen. And here's what one of the biggest problems is for people: fear. They fear being successful. Most people don't realize that. They fear stepping out of their comfort zone and actually making the booking. Okay, well, I got booked. What do I do now? Well, I have to actually do the show. And that's what that fear has to be dealt with. I have to deal with that program that makes them realize, hey, it's okay to have a little bit of apprehension, but that's what you're all about. That's how you're going to really change your life. And the more shows you do, the more you book. I call it the tornado versus the toilet. You got two things that will happen to you in life. Take the right actions, like going out and taking your advice, getting your mentorship, listening to what you have to say. You get booked, you do shows, you get better, you get more referrals, you book more shows, and next thing you know, you're cycling up like a tornado, picking you up into the atmosphere. And the more you do, the more you're capable of doing, and the more people want you. And then there's the toilet. Well, that's kind of like going downwards, the opposite direction. The less you do, the more you allow fear to paralyze you, the more inaction you sit in, the actual worse your situation becomes. Yeah. And unfortunately, most people are sitting at that neutral spot, or they're heading down the drain in the wrong way.
Okay. Now, a lot of people, in just a second, I want to ask you like some serious questions about the mentality, because I truly believe that entrepreneurs think so different than everyone else. And a lot of entrepreneurs have like a hidden thought process that they don't reveal because society says the exact opposite. But like right now, there are some people. Let's say I'll talk to them and I'll tell them, here's exactly what you should do. Now they know they should do it. They know they should take action, and yet they still don't. So one of the theories I'm kind of working on is, do you think there's a way to kind of trick the brain into taking action? So for example, let's say it's obviously important to focus. I mean, focus is a very important skill to learn. But if you tell someone to focus, they can't necessarily just do it. Instead, if you say, I want you to meditate for 20 minutes a day and then play chess every day, they're now learning the skill of focusing. So right. Do you think there's a way to actually teach people skills like that and basically trick their brains into being an entrepreneur, into having an entrepreneur mindset? Absolutely.
There's only one verbiage I would rather use instead of tricking, say reprogram. Okay. Because really it's about programming. See, we have a pattern in our brain that says, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. So how do we actually change that to where they believe they can do it? There's a technique I use actually in the beginning of my training program that makes the difference for everything. And I tell people over and over again, you must do two things. Number one is you must write out your goals. You must be very clear about what it is you want in life. And then the second thing you want to do following that right away is create what's called an affirmation. An affirmation is about speaking into existence who you are and who you anticipate the world to know you as. So it's not about, let's say you've been a procrastinator, you've messed up, you have this kind of maybe this image of yourself based upon your past history that isn't so positive. How do you change that? Well, you rewrite who you are, and then you speak it with authority every single day, at least 2 times a day out loud, hopefully someplace private, because sometimes you look a little crazy if you do it in public. But you speak your affirmations out with intense intent, with intense feeling and belief.
Hold your camera down a little bit.
Oh, so sorry. I get so excited talking about this stuff. The simple way is let's just say you wanted to be a person of action, and you've had a problem with inaction in your life. So a part of your affirmation is, I am a man or a woman of action. When I hear something that's right and I know I'm supposed to do it, I take action and I follow through till it's complete. That's what makes me successful. Now, if you say that every day, there's something that happens that's proven out scientifically. If you've ever heard of the book called Influence by Dr. Robert Cialdini, he talks about the 6 different influencers. Now, I have an entire training program on that online. And one of the areas is called commitment consistency. So when you say something and you declare it with your mouth and you do it in a audible way, and you say it with the right focus and intent, your brain goes to work reprogramming itself, and then it works on you becoming consistent with the commitment you just made. So it's really important. Some people won't tell anyone they made a commitment to book 3 shows a week, to work on booking 3 shows a month for the next year. But when they start telling people that, and they start confessing that out loud every day, their actions will automatically work to actually make that happen. Almost 2 years ago, I decided to change the way I ate. I've been working out my whole life, but I always carried a little bit more body fat than I wanted. And I think a lot of people can relate with that. Now, you're a nice thin fellow, so you don't probably struggle with that. But here's the situation that I had to actually change getting junk food out of my life. So I actually went on a cleanse. I went on an 11-day cleanse. I did this program. I dropped about 16 pounds. But what happened during that time was actually broke the cycle of my sugar addiction. And I knew it was time then. I was 52 at the time. And what was amazing was that I began to tell everybody, I will never again, as long as I live, eat cookies, cakes, ice cream, candy, or any other junk food. The only thing I allow in my life is some popcorn, because I love going to the movies. And to this day, I have never touched ice cream, cookies, cakes, candy, anything like that. And I never will as long as I live. I mean, I'm saying it in front of people. People can hold me 15 years from now from listening to this. You will see me.
I will. If I ever see you eat any sugar thing, I'm gonna hold you to it. So.
And you won't see me do it. I just don't eat that kind of stuff, and I don't want to eat that stuff anymore because I have now become consistent with the commitment I made that I've reinforced over and over again with an affirmation.
No, nice.
So that's how people can retrain themselves.
Okay.
Create a strong enough affirmation that you will work on intently, do it for 30 to 60 days, and you're going to see that your entire body is going to change because your mind has changed. Okay. You will take action.
Okay. Now, I definitely wanted to ask you this question, and this is where we're really going to get into the hidden thoughts. I call them hidden thoughts of entrepreneurs because they don't really reveal them too much. It involves money. And one thing with society in general, society often says, oh, money's evil and all that sort of stuff. Well, they kind of portray it. But people with money, obviously, they're very good with money. They think about the finances, all that. So how do you think people with money spend money differently than people without money?
It's a great question. Well, number one is the best resource I want to send people to that I've ever read that really helped clarify a lot in my mind was The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker.
Okay.
Phenomenal book. But essentially, we all have what's called a financial thermostat. And it's essentially where we're at is typically where our parents raised us to be, or those people who were the most influential in our lives. People that have broken free of that, people that have become self-made millionaires, had to learn how to reset that thermostat, to think about money in a different way than other people think about. Number one is we have to understand what money is. I go into rooms that are often filled anywhere between 80 and 200 people. And one of the things I ask everybody, and I said, by show of hands, who wants to be a millionaire? Everybody raised their hand. I said, who wants to be filthy rich and have money flowing over into their lives? And every single person raises their hand. Because I don't know anybody who doesn't want it. Mm-hmm. And I asked them, I said, well, let me ask you another question. Now we're going to put that first question aside for a moment. And I say this, can you hit a target you cannot see? And everyone goes, no, you can't. Okay, that's pretty much common sense. So I said, now let me ask you a question. You've all said that you want to be rich. You know it takes money to be rich. But I want to ask you this other question. What is money? And the room almost stops for a few moments because people have to really stop and think, well, gosh, what is money? And they come up with all different kinds of animals. Money's power, or money's... They tell me what money can do for you, but they're not telling me what money actually is. And I tell them, I said, well, listen, if I might pose this to you. Money is nothing more than what we exchange for the value of our goods or services in the marketplace. And by the way, the marketplace gets to determine, in general, what our goods or services are worth. So it's not real rocket science. It's that if I used to raise potatoes and you raise cattle, I would provide you with my surplus of potatoes for your family to eat, and you would provide me with some meat from your cattle ranch. And that's how we would provide value to one another. But that's what money is. It's nothing more than an exchange of value. You want to make more money? Make more value. How do you make more value? You've got to become more valuable. How do you become more valuable? You've got to invest in yourself. It's that upward cycle. Mm-hmm. So that's the beginning of what most wealthy people begin to see. They begin to see money as value, to see it differently than the way other people see it. They learn to detach these stigmas. One of the most misquoted biblical verses is that money is the root of all evil. It's not what the Bible says. It says that the love of money is the root of all evil. So people are constantly being programmed with wrong information. James Malinchak, who you've listened to speak, also I've listened to James a number of times, made a really interesting comment, because my wife and I happen to go to the movies probably 3 times a week. Love going to the movies. It's one of my favorite pastime things to do.
You got to see Alex Cross. It was a great movie.
I was going to go see it yesterday. I'm probably going to wait until tomorrow to see it, or maybe go later on today. We'll see. I'm a big Tyler Perry fan to begin with. But I saw Atlas Shrugged Part 2 yesterday. Now, I never heard of it other than the book years ago. Went to see it. You want to talk about something that make you think about money and about the current economy and where things are going when it comes to people owning the responsibility of their own lives and not giving it away to the government or anyone else. This movie is powerful.
Yeah, I watched the first one. I'll watch the second one.
I want to go see the first. I want to now see the first one because I didn't see the second one. But anyhow, the movies, James Malinchak used to reference, saying that the movies really have trained and conditioned so many people to be class envy, to realize to program people that it's bad to be rich, because they always almost always portray the wealthy as the bad people. The rich corporate mogul, the multimillionaire, the person who's made it and has the big house and the mansion. It's always the poor person against the rich person, and the rich person was the one who took advantage of them. Benji, you and I have been around rooms filled with people who are very wealthy. And that's not the kind of wealthy people that I see. Now, I know there are wealthy people that are not good out there, people who are greedy, who do wrong things. But I know a lot of poor people who are just as bad.
Yep.
I know a lot of wealthy people spend a lot of time raising money and giving money away. I mean, I was in church the other day, and there was not some wealthy people and some people middle class, some people poor, and they were raising money for children in Africa who are victims of AIDS. They've lost their parents, they need food, and I saw people just going to the back to adopt these kids. You adopt them by paying money every month. I went, and I already have kids that I've adopted, so to speak, in through Compassion USA. I've got 3 kids I've supported for years. We just picked up 2 more in the family.
Nice.
And there's a lot of people out there like that who are generous. People who have money, who understand how money works, think of things in a whole different way. Think about value. Taking the value that I have by sharing and helping people grow and become more successful, and I take some of that value and I give back and help other kids who don't have any ability to do that. You and I do things with our time to help other people, empower people. I mean, I know that I've watched you in a room where people come up and they're picking your brain or asking you stuff, and you're an open book, helping people to empower people to change their lives. And the world is filled with a lot of people like that. Now, to get back to your question originally, the mindset of the wealthy individual and the way they handle money is completely different. They look at money and they understand that money is something they need to be disciplined to be able to handle well. I go back to simple principles. One of the programs I teach in my Success Operating System, that's the name of my course, is on financial freedom. And I don't teach any specific techniques on how to get rich, but I tell people about the mindset. It's all about mindset. And it begins with this. If you spend more money than you make, you'll always be in debt. If you spend just as much as you make, you'll always just survive. But when you want to thrive and become financially independent, you must learn to spend less than you make and wisely invest the difference. That's the principle. That's the beginning point for everybody. I can tell you, most of the people that I've run into in life, and I was like that for a lot of my life, and when I came out of lower middle class family and I started making money as a doctor, I was spending a lot of money. I learned to raise my level of spending to equal my level of income. And so I wasn't getting ahead. And it wasn't until I learned how to rediscipline myself to start thinking differently, to thinking like a wealthy person, that I was challenged enough to begin to invest my money by not spending it all, but taking the surplus and putting it somewhere where it's going to go to work for me. Okay. And that's the beginning of it. The second thing is you got to be willing to then know what your current level of spending is. Now, I've heard people say this over and over again. I can't cut anything out of my budget. I mean, we don't really waste money. And if I could follow people around for a week, I can show them tons of areas they're wasting money. I mean, I could point out, just if they go to and just check out their grocery cart and the stuff they buy that they don't need, I have a brother-in-law who I love dearly, and he knows it. And he smokes 2 packs of cigarettes a day, 7 days a week, and he's on disability government money. I don't know how he eats. He's simply spending, I want to say, $300 a month on cigarettes, and he's killing himself. So there's lots of areas in our lives we could. And I have children. I have 5 children. My oldest is 30. My youngest is 21. I watch some of their spending habits, and I see them spending money they don't have. Because we live in a society that says, I'm entitled. I can have it now. See, they're under that principle that they can have success and pay for it later. And it doesn't work like that. Once you understand that success is to be paid for up front in advance, you're going to start saving your money, living a little leaner and smarter. Now, the other thing is, too, you can live at the same level you're at right now, but you're going to have to work a little harder, a little smarter. Then you begin to make more money by adding more value, and then you learn not to spend that money, and you learn to put it away and invest it.
Yeah. Years ago, I was a dummy, and I got into a lot of debt, and I eventually just cut all that out. I don't have any credit cards now. I don't spend any more money than what I have. Even when I bought my car out here in Vegas, I just said I'll just drop 10 grand, just pay cash for it. Not gonna get into any debt whatsoever. And I definitely see that people with money think about it so differently than everyone else. So, I mean, the basics is that going into debt is the wrong way to go, right?
And, you got it.
And
debt makes you a slave.
Yeah, I mean, if you had an option to give someone $1,000 and they gave you $5,000 in return, you would easily do it, right?
Yep. If you're offering, I'm taking.
Yeah. No, I'm not offering it. I'm just asking because I really want to get into the mindset of people who obviously have money, because, I mean, I think a lot of people do it so wrong. And obviously you're willing to invest. And when you say invest, you don't mean invest like in real estate. You just mean if someone says, give me 1,000, I'll give you 5,000 back, then you'll do it easily, right?
Right.
So, and earlier you mentioned time, and I also want to talk about time because I know that a lot of entrepreneurs think about time so differently than everyone else. So how would you say that entrepreneurs think about time and use their time differently than the average Joe?
Well, I spend, gosh, I can't tell you how many hours in my training program going over this. But let me give you the short of it, because that's going to help people the most. Mm-hmm. That if you think about some of the wealthiest people in the world, or someone, let's say the people who are most productive, they have the same 24 hours in a day that you and I have. So pretty much everybody understands that they're doing something different than the average person is doing. The average person is not utilizing their time, or we'll call leveraging their time effectively. Wealthy people learn the concept of leverage. They learn how to leverage their time. They learn how to leverage their money. They learn how to leverage their resources so that they can get multiples of it. You see, the average person, if they think about their life as trading time for dollars, then they go to a job and they make a certain salary every week, or they make a certain amount of dollars per hour. And that's going to be really difficult to create true wealth in your life. What's really going to help you create wealth is when you learn how to leverage, so you can actually get more. You can invest 1 hour of time and get a larger multiple in return. Now, that's the basic concept. Learning how to leverage and get larger multiples for return of the energy you put in. So if we stop and think about the way back in physics that we had in school or science, when we learned about energy, we put a certain amount of energy into something and a certain amount of energy comes back. Well, the goal about time management, resource management, and money, and about leveraging is about investing our time so that we get multiples in return as far as productivity. So if I can invest, you could take a really productive person who will invest 2 hours into a project that will return $20,000 to them. If the average person invests 2 hours into something and they're making, let's say, $15 an hour, let's be generous. So they made $30. What's the difference? It's the value of how they've leveraged their time and how they've set themselves up for it. Now, granted, you're not going to go from $15 an hour to $20,000 an hour or $10,000 an hour, however you want to put it. You're going to have to go through the steps necessary to get there. There's a natural progression, but most people never even step off the block to head towards that progression. It's about getting the mentorship, getting the education, getting the learning necessary to actually move to where you start thinking about what I call the Pareto principle. Now, I didn't make it up. It's a scientist, I want to say the 17th century, if I'm thinking correctly, is an Italian economist who had a garden who noticed that 20% of the peas that he would have, the pea pods, would produce 80% of all the peas. And now we've taken this principle, the 80-20 principle, called the Pareto principle, and we apply it in many different areas. But I teach a strategy that I've learned from someone else on how to take 20% of your time and produce 80% of your results. That's about leveraging. That's about working in a more laser-like focused manner that produces maximum results versus punching a clock, putting in 8 hours in and getting a little done. You see, the difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is that successful people race the clock to get as much done in the shortest period of time they can, while unsuccessful people watch the clock. Real different mentality.
Yeah, very different. Yeah, I've noticed. I mean, there's a huge difference in just time mentality with entrepreneurs. And I also wanted to ask you. You said like progression, and a lot of people don't know what you need to do from here to get to here. They think that you got to where you're at just by doing a few things, and it was kind of easy or whatever. So I want you to talk about. I call it the entrepreneur struggle, because most people think someone like Michael Jordan or whoever, they got to where they are by being talented. And
Yeah.
I personally don't believe in talent. They work so hard, people just don't see it.
Right.
So, and with entrepreneurs, everything is against you as an entrepreneur, to where you got friends who say you can't do something. You've got people who don't want to work with you because you're not successful yet. And it's like everything is going against you, which makes most people stop. So, how does someone kind of get through that struggle and talk about the struggle in general? Because I don't think people realize how hard it is to get to where they want to be, especially with all the motivational gurus saying if you think, then it comes to you, and all that. And it's like, no, that's just that's just a small step in it.
Yeah.
So talk about the entrepreneur struggle.
Well, again, I got to say something to the entire audience right now that I had no clue what questions you were going to ask me. This is unscripted as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you knew what questions you were going to ask. You didn't send them to me.
Nope.
But you couldn't have asked me better questions. It's like you're throwing me lobs, and I'm going to be able to hit them out of the park for you, because this is what I do for a living. I have a section in my program that I talk about compounding. Now, one of the best books I've ever read on this comes from Darren Hardy, who I love his writings, called The Compound Effect. And essentially works like this. And I'm going to call this natural law. See, I'm one of those people, I like to separate things when I talk. And I go, I believe in the natural law. And natural law, I believe, is agreed upon by every faith system there is on the planet, no matter who you are. I come from a very strong Christian background. But I think somebody who's a Buddhist or a Muslim or Jewish or astrophysical, I'm not sure all the different stuff out there, but everyone would pretty much agree that there's this natural law that's in effect throughout the world. And I believe that most success occurs through natural law. That just like you're going to, like if you said, okay, well, I'm 20 pounds overweight, my muscles are kind of weak, I'm not in really good shape, and I'm 45 years old and I want to change things around. You can say, okay, I've got a little bit of money saved up, and you go out to the Sports Authority and you just buy all the best, shorts and workout shirts and gym equipment, buy new shoes, and then you figure out what the best gym in town is. If you go there and you join, and you find out who the best trainer is in the gym, and you hire that trainer, and you show up the next day for your first training session, and that trainer takes you through the ropes, and you work out super hard. You're really convicted that you're going to change things, and you work out so hard that day, and you eat correctly that night, and you wake up the next morning, and you throw your shirt off that you've been wearing all night, and you stand in front of the mirror, and lo and behold, you don't look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. You don't look like Ronnie Coleman. You don't look like these chiseled athletes. Why? Because who would ever expect to get the physiological change after one workout? Because you have to have a workout followed by rest, good nutrition, followed by another workout, followed by rest, by good nutrition, And the cycle and the pattern has to repeat itself long enough to get the change necessary. You have to obey natural law. You have to burn off more calories than you take in, so you drop fat. You have to take in enough calories to be healthy and the right kind of nutrition, so you build muscle. And then your muscle starts to go up, your body fat starts to go down, your clothes start to drop off because they don't fit you anymore. And over a period of a year to 2 years to 3 years, you get massive changes in your life. But it didn't happen overnight. The same thing you need to apply to your finances. The same thing you need to apply to relationships. The same thing you need to apply to your spiritual life. You have to begin and work at it every single day, and it will build and compound over time. It's that cyclone, that tornado that brings you upwards. But when you start out, most people don't realize the journey of 1,000 miles begins with but the first step.
Yeah.
You don't go from the first step to the 600 mile instantaneously. You have to walk out 600 miles to get there.
Yeah.
And that's the part that's unattractive. That's the unsexy part that people don't want to hear.
Yeah.
But it is the thing that consistently works all the time. Anybody who tells you or tries to sell you something is doing nothing more than telling you or selling you. It's not the reality. The reality of it is, Benji, you didn't get to be, I've watched you perform, and you blow people away. People are absolutely mesmerized by you. But it didn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
You didn't pick up a book one day, read about the stuff that you do, and the next day you were an expert.
Yeah.
Malcolm Gladwell wrote the book Outliers and talks about all the different people that we look at that look like they were overnight sensations, and talks about the 10 years or 10,000 hours they had to put in to get where they were at.
Mm-hmm.
That follows natural law. That follows the law of compounding. And I would say that most people who try to bypass that wind up getting themselves in trouble.
Okay. Yeah, I agree 100%. And I just had a couple more questions for you. And well, one, what do you think is the most important business skill to have, just in general? And when I say skill, I mean, like, would you say maybe people skills, just networking, or focus? I mean, what's the most important skill for you?
I would say learning how to build relationships.
Okay.
I'd say that's the number one thing, is learning how to connect. I'm not talking about meet people, I'm talking about connect with people by bringing value. When you can build up, and here's one of the things that comes behind that, build a relationship, you have to build credibility. To build credibility, you have to have personal integrity. I can tell you that there's lots of people that I meet, and eventually, in the beginning, you like that person. But then you begin to find out that the person is not quite, they talk one game, but they live and do another.
Yeah.
That's inconsistency. That's lack of congruency.
Mm-hmm.
People call that lack of being out of integrity. Tony Robbins will kind of coin that. Mm-hmm. Those people are accidents waiting to happen. They've got problems. I can't tell you how many people say to me, "Oh, Ron, you're a life coach." I said, "No, I'm not. I'm a success coach. I've been studying success principles, successful people, and successful businesses for 34 years. You can go to somebody, I've met tons of life coaches who, were in their 20s, 30s, 40s, who have bad relationships, they're poor, they're broke, they've got all different kinds of issues in their lives, and could they have some head knowledge? Yeah. But you want to actually take advice and learn from people who have been down there and have achieved something. I want to learn something about putting money away and becoming wealthy. I want to learn from a wealthy person, not a broke person.
Yeah.
I want to learn about being physically fit. I don't want a trainer who's skinny as a toothpick and has no muscle on their body, or I don't want to learn from somebody who's like 100 pounds overweight. I want to learn from somebody who's fit and has done it before me.
Yeah.
So those are crucial items in a step towards progression.
Okay. All right. And one thing that I really want to get at too is, like earlier we were talking about entrepreneurs are different and everything. And Dan Kennedy kind of mentioned this in his time management system, like for a brief second, to where he said a lot of successful people have this kind of superior thought mentality to where, oh, what I'm doing is more superior than what they're doing, sort of thing. But they don't reveal it, because then everyone says, oh, you need to be humble, things like that. So would you say that you're definitely different than the average Joe? Because and don't try to be humble or anything, but when you really think about it, do you consider yourself to be the same as someone with a normal 9 to 5 job. At least your mindset.
Well, Benji, again, you're throwing me these pitches that I can hit out of the park. I'm writing a book right now, and I don't want to reveal the title of it, but I'm going to tell you this. Here's the premise: you were born equal with the right to become unequal.
Oh, cool.
And I'm not talking about social equality. That's a whole different ballgame. In our country, we've been fighting for social equality for a lot of years now, and we need to continue that fight. But when it comes to your individual, who you were born equal, and you better work real hard to become unequal, because that's what separates you from the pack. It's those qualities you're willing to work at and develop in your life that will separate you from everybody else. If you do what everybody else does, you'll get what everybody else has. But if you do what the few do, the few who attain financial freedom, the few who attain physical fitness, the few who attain a spiritual enlightening or congruity in their lives, the people who attain the well-respect because their relationships are deep and broad, then you got to do what those individuals do. And they're rare. They're not the majority. They're the minority. They're the unequal. So dare to be unequal as much as you can.
Okay. Yeah, I've always been a firm believer. I'm like Tiger Woods, all these guys, Michael Jordan. They didn't get to where they're at by saying, "Yeah, I'm like a normal basketball player, a normal golfer, or whatever." They have these kind of superior thoughts they just don't reveal. And the very last question is, everyone says your first million is the hardest to make. So what advice would you give to anyone who just wants to make their first million or just be an entrepreneur in general? So what's your last bit of advice here?
Don't get divorced.
That's good advice. Keep your costs down, right? So.
Yeah, I met some people yesterday. I hadn't seen in about 16 years, and we were laughing at that. We were just laughing about the effect of divorce, and so many people got the reset. And it happened to me. You know, it's like I was set for life, and then my ex-wife decided that she wanted to be married to someone else, and so my net worth went less than half in a matter of a year or two. And I say that with fun now because I've been blessed by the most wonderful wife in the world now, and I've been blessed financially again, and I live the life that I truly want to live. And I know there are people who make more money than I do. There are people who make less money. But I live doing what I want to do every single day, helping people, investing into people, and bringing value to them. And that's more important to me than anything else. And I have been blessed financially, and I'm very grateful for that. So I want to set with that. And what advice? Now, to get to the first million is definitely the hardest struggle. But it's the journey that changes you. And that's what you have to keep your eye on. That if you learn the right principles, you'll learn to reinvest in yourself. You'll learn to get mentors. You'll learn to know you're going to make mistakes along the way. See, most people never get started because they're afraid of failure. Failure is part of all success. You've got to go through failures to get to be successful. I mean, as a real estate professional, one of the deals I got involved with, I was the biggest investor. We bought a 112-unit apartment building. I put $150,000 of my own personal money in, and we lost that. It was right around 2008, 2009 when the entire industry went upside down, and I lost a $150,000 investment cash. Now that's a pretty big nut to me and to a lot of other people, but it's a great learning experience. People say to me, "Well, God, how do you not go crazy thinking about that?" I said, because I view it differently than other people do. I look at it as a $150,000 lesson, education that I will never make again. I will never make that mistake again. And I've learned from it, and I can tell other people about it, and they can learn from my mistakes. And they can actually, by the way, they can pay me to learn from my mistakes, because that's what it's all about and what I do. I'm an information exchange specialist. I help people learn from the benefit of my knowledge, my experience. But getting that first $1 million is going to take some work, and the sooner you begin, and there's no better time than now. See, I every time I get in front of an audience, I tell people, if you can wake up every day and say these two things to yourself: if not me, then who? If not now, then when? You should challenge yourself with that every single day. Because if you're not worthy of getting that first million, then don't bother trying. But once you believe you're worthy of it, then take all the action you need to take every single day, and don't worry about failure, because it's going to come. And you're going to have to do what people call fail forward fast, and learn and recover from your mistakes, and then keep doing better and better and tweaking it in until you get that first $1 million. And know that it's going to take the law of compounding to effectively grow in your life. But once you're there, the principles and what you become during that time are going to make you the next million, and the next million, and the next million.
Okay, wow, it was great. Well, Well, real quick, tell us your website where everyone can get in touch with you and everything. So.
Well, you can reach me at Dr. Ron at drroneccles.com. That's the website. So it's on my email address, drron at drroneccles.com. The website is drroneccles.com, drroneccles.com. I have a blog there, although I was away for more than a month when I saw you just recently. I was gone for 1 month. Been in the process of moving in between that, so it's been about 2.5 months since I posted a new blog, but I'm back and I'm in action and I'm getting back on it again.
All right, cool. Well, I appreciate everything, and we'll definitely stay in touch. And I appreciate it. Everybody. Go to Ron Eccles. He is a great wealth coach in general. So if you need any help with it, make sure you go to his website. So thank you.
Great. Benji, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate all the work you do. Hey, guys, listen, I'm throwing a plug in for Benji. It's a shameless plug, but if you guys haven't hired him to come and do one of your events, I'm telling you, you're missing out on just a guy who just rocks. He blows everybody away. I'm talking about people that are millionaires, people that are hardworking, people that are building their way towards this wealth. Every single one of them, they've turned to me. I can't tell how many people turn to me. Did you see this guy, Benji Bruce? Did you see what he does? I said, yeah, I've seen Benji a few times. He's amazing. So keep doing what you do, Benji.